Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. The Oscars have ended, but the other Oscars have just begun. It's never too early for 2022 Oscar predictions. This is actually disgustingly late. I mean, we should have been doing this in March, right after the Oscars would have happened. We need to start thinking of it next year. You know, the early part is just as fun in a way, because your imagination is just running wild. We've got a massive list of films for you here, and we're just going to do the picture category. To go through all the actors and actresses, it's going to take too much time. We have a long-ass list, and I don't want to cut it short. My most confident prediction is just going to be that there's going to be at least one movie that's not even on this list that gets
absolutely.
nominated.
There's going to be like
year.
2 or 3.
Oscars aside, you could also just take this list as like, you know, what movies to be excited for next year, because there's obviously value to each one of them outside of what awards they get. A couple films that people think are coming out, but are probably not coming out. Armageddon Time, James Gray's film. This seems like it's probably going to come out next year because it didn't even start filming. The Way of the Wind, Terrence Malick. My general rule with Terrence Malick is that if you think his movie's coming out this year, wait another year. Bradley Cooper's film Maestro, where he's playing Leonard Bernstein, like obviously it's an Oscar contender. It's just not going to come out this year. And finally Limbo, which is Alejandro González Iñárritu's film, which I think is filming. I expect it might come out next year. There's a chance for it to come out this year. I mean, if it was coming out this year, it'd be on my list.
I fully expect this will be his Roma, and it'll be insane.
Okay, number 1 is Nightmare Alley. Is this the most likely movie to get nominated? Quite possibly. Nightmare Alley is a noir directed by Guillermo del Toro. It's adapted from a book, which became a movie in the 40s. It stars Bradley Cooper as Cate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Rooney Mara, Willem Dafoe, David Strathairn. Shape of Water shit, Desplot's back, the cinematographer's back.
Throwback to old Hollywood. You have Bradley Cooper being like the more straight, like Humphrey Bogart-esque detective, I assume. Probably insane cinematography. It's a noir. Of course, it's getting nominated.
Oh, yeah.
And Guillermo del Toro just couldn't be hotter off of The Shape of Water. And this is just so obviously an Oscar film. It's one of the easiest films to be like, okay, if anything's getting 10 nominations this year, like this is one of them.
Number 2 is the untitled David O. Russell project, which some are saying will be called Canterbury Glass. This is a period film from David O. Russell, all right? Like American Hustle, it could get like 10 nominations. Christian Bale is in it. Margot Robbie's in it. John David Washington. I expect all 3 of them will be nominated, but even apart from them, in the rest of the cast, we got Anya Taylor-Joy, Zoe Saldana, Robert De Niro, Andrea Riseborough, Rami Malek, Mike Myers, Michael Shannon, Matthias Schoenaerts, and Chris Rock. And on the cinematography end, we have literal legend Emmanuel Lubezki. Okay, literal legend.
Which is a weird pairing. Because
It is.
you don't associate their styles together. But that's why I'm like, okay, this is some spicy David O. Russell shit. Sometimes when the director is just kind of rehashing what they always do, you get a little jaded, you get a little skeptical. This is not the case for this film.
And who's doing the score? It's Hildur Guðnadóttir.
Good fucking
from Joker,
God.
Academy
Good fucking
Award
God.
winner.
I mean, if this film flops in terms of awards and acclaim, like, we'll be wondering what went wrong for years to come.
Number 3 is The Tragedy of Macbeth. Joel Cohen, without any involvement from his brother Ethan Cohen, is doing a Macbeth adaptation, which will be maybe one of the most interesting we've ever had. It has Denzel Washington as Macbeth. It has Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth. The cinematography is being done by Bruno Delbon, a 5-time Oscar nominee who did Inside Llewyn Davis, and it will be in black and white. My goodness, is this getting lots of Oscar nominations? Unquestionably.
How could this film not really work? Like, they're obviously going to take interesting risks with it. It's Joel Cohen. The taste of the Coen brothers just can't be underestimated.
It's also kind of a thriller, I'm hearing. It's being reworked a little bit to have a sort of ticking time element where the characters are a little older than they are in like the original Macbeth. And I heard that the entire thing is being shot on sound stages to give it some sort of like weird quality that they're going for. I'm very curious to see what this is going to look like. The only risk is if, you know, people who just don't like Shakespeare are a little turned off by the Shakespeare dialogue, but I think that Joel Cohen's going to update it in a way that's going to be very appealing.
The acting is going to be incredible. I mean, are we looking at a 3rd Oscar for Denzel Washington? Are we looking at a 4th Oscar for Frances McDormand?
They couldn't.
We can't do that again, can we? Can we? I don't know.
Number 4 is House of Gucci. This is one of 2 Ridley Scott movies this year. It stars Lady Gaga. It's got Adam Driver. It's got Jared Leto. It's got Al Pacino. It's a tale of greed, crime, and murder.
Space fits into crime.
You could submit just a slideshow of the behind-the-scenes photos, and you would get a makeup nomination, a costume nomination already. Watching some of the behind-the-scenes footage of Lady Gaga and Jared Leto like screaming, it's like, I could see where this could be a little bit of a tonal misstep. But again, it's Ridley Scott. Too many good actors to deny this one.
It clearly wants Oscars, and Lady Gaga, I'm really excited to see her in another project after her amazing performance in A Star Is Born.
Number 5 is Soggy Bottom. Paul Thomas Anderson. You say those 3 words and all the ears go up. This is a coming-of-age film set in Los Angeles, I think in the 70s, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. Coming-of-age films, high school, it doesn't really seem too much like Oscar. And Paul Thomas Anderson isn't always making Academy-friendly movies, but we're talking 70s LA. The kid is a child actor. Bradley Cooper is playing a film producer in it, who many speculate is John Peters, the producer of the 70s version of A Star Is Born. Alana Haim is also in this from the band Haim, and she's likely playing Barbra Streisand. None of this is confirmed, but it's very, very obvious based on the costumes that they gave these characters, literally modeled off of actual photos of these people. So it's about Hollywood, is what I'm trying to say here, and how could you go wrong with that?
Paul Thomas Anderson just doesn't always make the most successful movies. I mean, Inherent Vice was like beyond me. I did not even like that movie. It's the only film of his that I didn't like. But then you have There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread, his 2 kind of Oscar contenders, and then he's been nominated for screenplay a bunch of times. This one does seem more like a friendly, funnier movie, and the fact that it takes place in Hollywood, it looks like Bradley Cooper is probably going to get nominated wherever he is, probably supporting for this film.
Yeah. We have Next Goal Wins. This is pretty high, but I think about it and I'm like, yeah, why would this not get nominated? Taika Waititi is directing. He did Jojo Rabbit. I mean, that was absolutely winning in its tone. It was funny and dramatic. It was tear-jerky. And even though the critics weren't like crazy about it, I mean, it was just such an Oscar-friendly movie that audiences absolutely loved. And this is looking to be a major crowd pleaser. The film is about a soccer coach who gets recruited to help out the American Samoa soccer team who are very bad at soccer. And the way that the story goes, they lose pretty miserably, but I'm sure it'll be about the fun along the way.
Michael Fassbender is going to be screaming his head off as the head coach. That's like what his role is. He's going to be very funny and very loud. It's going to be hilarious. He could get nominated for an Oscar. We don't know what Elizabeth Moss is doing. She's probably supporting in it, and we just don't know what she's doing. But this is based on a story that had a documentary made about it, which people find very charming and fun. There's this like great underdog story here that a lot of people might connect with. It could be really charming, just like Jojo Rabbit, and really win people's hearts over. In the Heights, we have at 7. This is the only film, I think, in this list that people have seen. So Letterboxd and Twitter reactions are very positive, as you'd expect. And they're positive to the point where I think this is going to be talked about for Oscars, and people are going to be pushing it until the end of the year. And here's the kicker. Okay, this film, it's going to get nominated for SAG Ensemble. Like, when you think about it, how could it not? Crazy Rich Asians, from the same director, got nominated for SAG Ensemble because that was sort of a milestone in, like, Asian casting. Here you have a film that is absolutely a milestone. There's even somebody who has supporting actress hype, the grandmother in this film.
Olga Meredith.
And I try not to get too psyched out with Twitter reactions because they're always more positive than what critics think. But just being the crowd pleaser that it is and being kind of more of an original movie, being amazing for representation, all that stuff will really help. That SAG Ensemble nomination could take it to a PGA nomination.
It doesn't have to be the critics' favorite. Like, this is a crowd pleaser. It's going to be a summer fucking smash. It's like a fun celebration of a movie. You're going to laugh, cry, and maybe sing and dance along,
and
too.
I think it's going to do really well at the box office, too. When people are going to decide between, okay, 2 Oscar contenders, West Side Story, In the Heights, which one are they going to pick? You kind of have to imagine that they're going to pick In the Heights over West Side Story because West Side Story is just kind of this cheap remake, right? And In the Heights is more of a groundbreaking original film.
In the Heights feels like it's going to be the one movie that after the pandemic is finally over, we all get back to the theaters and we have a movie that's about people dancing out fucking side together. I don't know. It just kind of feels like that first movie that's really going to like open up the theaters for everybody and get back to like that classic Hollywood feel that we missed. Dune is number 8. There's definitely a lot of pressure on this movie. There might even be too much pressure because honestly, if it disappoints people even a little bit where they like it, but they don't quite love it, I don't think it's going to get in. Like, it has to really like hit hard with
some people are definitely going to love it. I think it's going to be somewhat similar to Blade Runner, where some people thought Blade Runner 2049 was like the best sequel ever made, okay? The reactions were just so varied that it made me realize, like, I guess it's just kind of the nature of the beast. Maybe that's going to be the nature of the beast with Dune.
One thing that I'm curious about, though, is apparently an adaptation of the first half of the book. Is it going to feel incomplete? I mean, I know Villeneuve, like, I feel like he's going to do an amazing job. I don't think he's going to leave anybody hanging. Definitely going to get, like, production design, cinematography, sound, like, all that shit. It might be like a 3-hour movie as well, I've heard. There's a rumor that it's 3 hours. And it's very, very rare for a freaking fantasy epic to be nominated at the Oscars. I mean, this is looking like it has to be Lord of the Rings shit if it's going to happen.
Dune is a very nerdy movie. Like, there's going to be adults with action figures after Dune. Personally, I'm not as excited about Dune as some other people are. Not because I don't love Villeneuve. Like, Arrival is one of my favorite movies of all time. But for Dune, I thought the cinematography looked a little bit bland, just from the trailer at least. And there's nothing about the story that necessarily captivates me or makes me think this is going to be really original or like trying to be about something in like a deeper way. I kind of am hearing like, oh, this is, you know, the kind of story of a boy who does this and learns to be a man. It's like, okay, it kind of sounds familiar to me. I'm not convinced yet.
But you think it's worthy being in the top 10 right now?
Yeah, I do kind of, because there's huge buzz and it's obviously getting some nominations.
Yeah. The Power of the Dog. This one has a lot of hype. It's from Jane Campion, who directed The Piano. Where's Jane Campion been? She hasn't really made a movie on that level since then, but maybe this is her time. She's doing it with Netflix, and Benedict Cumberbatch, Jesse Plemons, and Kirsten Dunst, as well as Thomas and Mackenzie, are all in this film and could be getting nominations if this is a big contender. They definitely could be getting acting nominations. The film is about a rivalry between two brothers. One is Benedict Cumberbatch, he's like the more intellectual one, and one is Jesse Plemons, who is the dopier one. And the dopey brother tries to sabotage the Benedict Cumberbatch brothers' marriage to Kirsten Dunst. It's also hard to deny that this cast is going to be really good. It's going to be very well acted. But also Johnny Greenwood's doing the score. So that is interesting.
That's incredible.
That is great and interesting. Also worth noting, as we get into this 10th slot, that we are finally going to have a locked-in 10 this year. No 8 nominees, no 9 nominees, 10 guaranteed. The Northman from Robert Eggers. Initially, I would have thought this is like a little lower because Robert Eggers is making slow-paced movies that aren't for everyone.
And they're just the genres that he takes on, like gothic horror and stuff, just not the Oscars thing.
This is a epic Viking tale set in the 10th century, full of folklore shit. Like, the characters are based on like little mythology like characters and stuff, and like Bjork's in it, and she's playing a character called the Slav Witch.
He's quickly becoming one of the most bonkers filmmakers. He's also one of the most exciting filmmakers.
It might just have to get like production design, costumes, cinematography. It might have to get technicals. It's an epic fucking tale in Iceland, like bigger scope, bigger scale than he's ever done before. It's also gonna have, I think, some like brutal ass fucking violence in there that I think some people will like. Look at the cast too. Alexander Skarsgård is in the lead. We have Anya Taylor-Joy. We have Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe.
It's also the first film of Robert Eggers to not be produced by A24. It's produced by Focus Features.
Also, the composers on this film, one of them is electronic composer Vessel, and the other is the founder of Triangle Records. That's a fucking choice. For a 10th century movie, you're picking like electronic musicians to score your movie. So it's gonna be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And it might just be like that goddamn good that we're okay nominating something that's a little weird because it's just very special.
And we know that this film, in terms of craft, just like pure crafts, be fucking nuts. Like, actually insane. Is it too good to be true that this would get Oscar nominations?
Or is it Robert Eggers' time? And then we have West Side Story, which is Spielberg's remake of the 10 Oscar-winning film. I can't recall like a major Oscar movie being remade and being successful, but Spielberg, on the other hand, he hasn't missed with his last 5 Oscar bait movies since Munich. And we're talking, like, I'm not including the BFG or Tintin or something. Like, we're talking the movies that seemed easy for awards all get nominated with this guy.
It's a hard one, and I think they really have to answer to why do we need this film? And that's going to be what makes or breaks it. Like, if the film cannot explain itself well enough, then it's forgettable. We maybe just give it cinematography and production design, or maybe sound and song.
Maybe supporting actress for Ariana DeBose. Who knows?
Yeah, but even the post was so familiar, and we still nominated it. So that's where, you know, I think you still have to keep it kind of high up. At the end of the day, In the Heights, like, on paper, people are more excited about In the Heights than this one, and they're going to continue to be.
Don't look up. You might expect this to be higher, because this is Adam McKay, whose last 2 films were major Oscar hits. And it stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, and the supporting cast includes Cate Blanchett, Timothée Chalamet, Meryl Streep, Jonah Hill, Mark Rylance, Ron Perlman, Tyler Perry, Ariana Grande. I mean, it's insane.
It's an allegory for global warming, where a meteor is coming, hurling towards the Earth, and the scientists are warning everybody, but they're not doing anything about it because they're politically motivated, right?
From that description alone, I understand the movie and I understand what it's trying to say already. Is that a bad thing? Is the movie going to explore that in a way where I'm going to feel like it merited a 2-hour movie? Or is it going to be very kind of preachy about what it's trying to say? And it's going to be so on the nose? It's also not, unlike his last 2 films, based on a real event. And I also heard someone say that it was like a combination of The Big Short and The Other Guys. Is it more comedy? Is it more comedy than his last?
It sounds like there's a lot of probably absurdism in there, but it's all satire. Like it's just one big satire fest. He is not even being shy about it. He's not being coy. He's just taking a sledgehammer and smacking you with it, preaching his message about global warming. And I mean, I'm fine with messages about global warming and how we need to take action. Like, that's obviously okay with me. But movies that are preachy in general, it's just like a less artful way of making things. And, you know, he has his style and he is going to indulge it. I don't know if this is going to be his best film.
At 13, we have A Journal for Jordan. Denzel Washington is directing, and this is his first film that he's not also starring in. Michael B. Jordan stars in this film, and it's based on a true story. It's a true story of a man who was killed during the war in Baghdad, and he wrote over 200 pages of letters to his son, who's 7 months old, in case he didn't return, instructing him like on, you know, life lessons, giving him advice that he might not ever be able to give him. So this sounds very like tear jerk and potentially like Oscar baity stuff. And Denzel Washington as a director has proven that he gets really great performances out of his actors.
Yeah, I think Michael B. Jordan is actually like has more of a shot than the movie itself. The likelihood that he's going to give a great performance, you know, it's only almost guaranteed. The movie itself could be a little too maybe sentimental. I'm thinking, you know, Just Mercy. Just Mercy comes to mind.
If the film is a strong contender, I think there's a newcomer actress in here named Shantae Adams who could be nominated in supporting or lead, whatever kind of role she's in. Annette.
One of the only films on here that has a trailer too.
Yeah, you gotta go check out the
great
trailer.
trailer. Amazing looking.
Yeah, this is from Leos Carax, who directed Holy Motors. And if you haven't seen Holy Motors, my goodness, what a bonkers, weird ass trip. Not a director who you'd think, oh, his next movie will be an Oscar contender. And this one is very, very bonkers. It is 95% music. So it's a musical. It's just a weird ass musical that's going to go to Cannes. It's going to premiere at Cannes. And all the music is being done by Sparks, who are an art rock duo that operated a lot in like the 70s and 80s. So the music is going to be a style of its own, unlike all other musicals that we might see. Adam Driver is probably going to be amazing. The cinematography looks great. Marion Cotillard's in it. What if it comes out of Cannes, you know, 90 on Metacritic. Everybody's praising Adam Driver.
Adam Driver could win Best Actor at Cannes. The cinematography looks fucking incredible. I'm wondering if the accordion scene in Holy Motors is like a clue as to what this movie will be like with a feature-length musical. It's one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. That's why it's hard to put in your top 10 though, because this is no doubt going to be like insane and not for everybody, not trying to get Oscars. I'm really excited for this film. I think regardless of whether it gets Oscar nominations or not, this stands a chance to be one of the very best films of the year. The film is coming out right after its Cannes premiere in July in France. I think it's released in France first. That is early for Oscar films, so it will have to overcome a little bit of an earlier release.
The French Dispatch. We know a lot about this one already. We've had trailers for like almost a year now. It's going to go to Cannes. It's Wes Anderson. It has a giant Wes Anderson cast. The cinematography and the production design look absolutely gorgeous. Top notch, Grand Budapest Hotel level shit. You know, we can't necessarily say that just because Wes Anderson made it to the Oscars for 1 year, that every time he does a live action film from here on out, it's going to be a massive Oscar thing. One of the reasons I'm skeptical here, the story seems a little fragmented where we're getting maybe 3 different stories told across the film.
It's definitely, I think, getting in for, you know, costumes, makeup, art direction, probably cinematography, probably no acting nominations. None of his films have gotten it so far. I don't expect this one to. But, you know, some people just freaking love everything he does. And now that he's been invited to the Oscars, he does have a better chance of being invited back.
And then we have Blonde, which Netflix has. Ana de Armas is like a top Best Actress contender. She's playing Marilyn Monroe. But this is based on a novel by Joyce Carol Oates, which is considered a very good novel, but it's a fictionalized account of her life. So it's not necessarily like a true-to-life biopic. And it's directed by Andrew Dominique, who did Killing Them Softly and The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. We know that we're going to get something interesting. We're not going to get like a generic sort of Marilyn Monroe movie that you would expect, which is great. But it's also in the hands of a director who has like tested audience's patience, I guess you could say, with his last two movies.
Yeah, Killing Them Softly is one of the most divisive movies I could think of from the last decade. Blonde just has less of a chance of appealing to everybody, and it makes me skeptical this is going to get a Best Picture nomination, but if Ana de Armas is like in this to win it, then the movie could rise with her, as tends to happen.
And Adrian Brody also has a big role in it as well, so maybe he could get his first nomination since The Pianist. At 17, we have Mass, which was at Sundance. It addresses a topic that's very close to home for any American. It's very intense, but it has performances that are out of this world magnificent. Anne Dowd seems poised to be in maybe the winning conversation for supporting actress. Martha Plimpton is amazing. She should get a lead actress nomination.
She should, and if she doesn't, I will be really upset.
And Jason Isaacs should be nominated for probably lead. Reed Birney's also amazing in it. And the screenwriting in this film is fantastic. It's also very, very heavy, but when you have performances, when you have writing, you only have to take one little more baby step to get to a Best Picture nomination.
I think they're going to nominate Anne Dowd. I think they could nominate Martha Plimpton. I think Jason Isaacs is worthy, but I'm not convinced yet that he'll get a nomination. It's almost as though this was like an award-winning play that they just put on the screen. And in a way, this feels like an Oscar drama because of the caliber of the performances and the writing. But it does take place in one room with kind of barren white walls, which is not a choice I'm criticizing, but is not as appealing to Oscars people because it's a low production value. So it does have a big hill to climb. I'd love for it to have like the Father trajectory or something at the end of the year.
Yeah,
I'm not convinced it'll happen. And also this year will inevitably be more crowded than last year, just harder to get in.
At 18, we have The Last Duel. And understandably, this is higher for some people. It is Ridley Scott's other film. And this is like a movie with like swords and shit, all right? It has Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and Adam Driver and Jodie Comer in it. And some people are saying that Jodie Comer is primed to get some awards consideration in supporting actress for this role. It's based on a book, and it's adapted by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And you know who else is writing it? Nicole Holofcener, who wrote Can You Ever Forgive Me? Brilliant screenplay. She's also a director. She did Enough Said. There's a really good crew on this movie. But is it too, like, kind of a classical, like, knights in armor thing?
You don't really have a precedent for, like, this decade of making that kind of film that's not an outlaw king or The King. I saw The King, and it was good. But it seems like it's trying to repeat, like, the early 2000s successes.
Like Gladiator.
Yeah. But I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can bring that to this day, and that's why the only reason that I am legitimately considering it, and I am, is because of the talent here.
Last Night in Soho is 19. This is like one of everybody's most anticipated films because it's coming from Edgar Wright, and what he's doing here is really different from what he usually does. The film stars Thomasin McKenzie as a girl who mysteriously like travels back in time to the 60s and meets her idol, who's like this singer played by Anya Taylor-Joy. But then it's like also this psychological horror film inspired by movies like Roman Polanski's Repulsion. The cinematographer on this movie too is responsible for like all of Park Chan-wook's films like Old Boy and The Handmaiden. And even just looking at the stills for this thing, I mean, there's like lots of different colors coming in everywhere. It could be Edgar Wright's most visually sumptuous film yet. Working against it is obviously like genre. That's
Yep.
huge working against it. It's also, you know, the cast is predominantly like young people. The Oscars, I don't know, they don't like that as much. But Edgar Wright seems like he's overdue for at least Oscar recognition of some kind.
It could be more like poppy entertainment. I mean, look at Baby Driver. I really love Baby Driver. That was just not a movie that took off into the Oscars aside from sound and editing, which is like really cool that it still got those. I think this film can get some below the line nominations for sure. Maybe editing or sound or that kind of costume, cinematography, something like that. For sure. For it to get into Best Picture, it does seem less likely. It'd have to be Edgar Wright's very best film, and it would have to really stand out. And just the genre does hold it back.
At 20, I have Come On, Come On. This is Mike Mills' next film. A24 has it. Joaquin Phoenix is in it. I really do expect Joaquin Phoenix could be in the Best Actor conversation. You know, maybe this is a cinematography contender, Robbie Ryan, shooting it in black and white. But it's a very like low-key drama. The way that this would get into the Oscars, if it's like Marriage Story level shit where it has like a 90 on Metacritic and it's just like a critic's favorite, that's how it would get in.
Yeah, and the kid in the movie does have a Marriage Story, like Kramer versus Kramer kid haircut. So I think that does give us a clue as to like what kind of movie this is. Mike Mills' dramas are usually a little bit too low-key for the Oscars. So we'll see if this is like his very best film. Again, like I think this has to be his best. But Joaquin Phoenix will be a contender.
At 21, we have Spencer, which made a lot of waves on social media after the first image of Kristen Stewart playing Princess Diana came out.
It's still kind of annoying how people are still catching on to the fact that Kristen Stewart is more than Twilight, and she's actually a really good actress.
Yeah.
But to be fair, she has been in a lot of independent films that are like indie to the point where it's understandable most people have not seen them. This is directed by Pablo Larraín, and he did Jackie. Natalie Portman got nominated for Jackie. It also got some below the line nominations. Jackie was a pretty interesting film. What's kind of weird about this one is it almost seems similar, but I don't know if he can repeat like the same exact thing. And even if he did, I mean, Jackie was too weird for the Oscars. Jackie was like a total art house film. It was one of the artsiest films I had seen that year. This one, we don't really know like what the angle is going to be. And he's an interesting filmmaker, but I think that does put this one at a distance from the Academy. And even if Kristen Stewart's really good in it, I could see her, unfortunately, like, being left out for other more awardsy films in this one. But maybe it does get like those Jackie nominations.
22 is Being the Ricardos. I am not sure that this comes out this year. It's not confirmed. Assuming it does, this is Aaron Sorkin directing and writing once again. This is about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz from I Love Lucy. And Nicole Kidman's playing Lucille Ball. It's a weird casting choice. There's already been people who are like, what? Javier Bardem's casting as Desi Arnaz is also weird for other reasons. But Aaron Sorkin, I mean, he just had a huge hit with Trial of Chicago 7, and it's about Hollywood figures in the television world. So can we ignore this? It has a big cast.
We already know, though, that he won't be nominated for director for this film.
He doesn't
because
need to be.
He had Trial of Chicago 7. He couldn't get nominated for that.
But Jeff Cronenweth, who is David Fincher's cinematographer on Dragon Tattoo and Social Network and Gone Girl, is shooting this one. He's just trying to be his own David Fincher now.
I do feel like he is kind of shooting himself in the foot by directing all of his films now. People are feeling like the staginess of his dialogue, and it's really, I think it's working against him. It's like it's gonna hurt his legacy, I think.
There's so much about it already that's making people cringe. The casting, the director, weird. For a movie that should be making people really excited. The Brutalist from director Brady Corbett, who did Vox Lux a few years ago with Natalie Portman. This one is a drama about a Holocaust survivor who comes to the US with his wife in the 40s, and they're apparently an architect who like spends the next 3 decades creating their masterpiece. So it's a decades-spanning type of thing, a sprawling drama, perhaps. It has Sebastian Stan, Vanessa Kirby, Marion Cotillard, Mark Rylance, and Joel Edgerton. So quite a cast here. And quite a kind of an Oscar bait sort of plot going on here.
Now, Brady Corbett's Vox Lux was too strange for the Oscars. So much so it couldn't even get Natalie Portman nominated for, some people said she's giving one of her best performances. So I'm sure this film will have really great cinematography and production design, be a very good looking movie. But Brady Corbett doesn't seem too concerned with doing Oscar-y stuff. So even though it's a period piece,
I mean, it looks like here, I mean, he knows what he's doing here. He knows what that is.
Coda, which we also saw at Sundance, and which won director, ensemble, and the jury prize. It has really great performances. Like Marlee Matlin is back, and she is giving a really great supporting actress performance. I think she could get nominated. It's like a decent shot. I also think the father who does sign language in the film, who is also deaf in real life, could get nominated. He's really good in it. It is a complete tearjerker, and it's a film that I really like. But it also feels more like a family film, and it has lower production value. Like the cinematography isn't outstanding. It looks kind of low budget, and that's where I think it could be held back a little bit. And Apple Plus bought this for like a record $25 million at Sundance, and they're choosing to release it in like August, which is like right before the fall festival. So you have to wonder, like maybe they don't quite believe in it as an awards contender. It's definitely a movie that's going to make like your parents cry, and so how far can a movie like that go? Yeah, I'm skeptical that Coda gets in at the end of the day when there's all these other contenders in the mix, but I really hope that some of the actors get in.
And we have Red, White, and Water, which stars Jennifer Lawrence. It's an A24 film. It's an indie. The director and writer has never done a film before, so it's kind of interesting that A24, their faith in her to do a film with Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. You have to imagine, anything Jennifer Lawrence does is potential to be considered for Oscars, like anything she does. So, and this seems like a meatier role than her role in Don't Look Up. She's playing a war veteran who suffers like a brain injury.
Brian Tyree Henry also seems to be a lead in this film, and I think he is poised to have a year because he's in the Eternals and he is a great actor. This could be one of those indies that pops up, and if it hits the festival circuit, if it does really well, maybe there's a slot for it at the Oscars.
We have The Humans, which is based on a Tony Award-winning play. Has a great cast. Stephen Yeun, Beanie Feldstein, Amy Schumer, June Squibb, Jane Houdyshell, and Richard Jenkins are all in this film. Jane Houdyshell is reprising her Tony-winning role for featured actress, so that's supporting actress. And Richard Jenkins is also playing a role that won supporting actor, so maybe there could be some actors in consideration. This is being done by A24. It seems like a really interesting project, but I've also heard it might be a little divisive, and there's some sort of like horror element, like bump in the night thing that comes up, but it's also like this sort of drama about people like locked in their apartment. So I'm not really sure what'll come of this one, but maybe it could start out screenplay or a couple supporting actors and make its way in from there.
King Richard, which stars Will Smith. He's playing the Williams sisters' father, the tennis stars, who everybody knows for being good at tennis. It's a film about how he coaches his daughters into being amazing tennis players, and I'm pretty sure it only chronicles their childhood. And this is mainly a vehicle for Will Smith. I mean, we know that Will Smith is capable of amazing things and he is an excellent actor. I could easily see him getting nominated for this film. It seems like it might be more of a audience-friendly film.
Yeah, maybe it could be like sort of standard, like a John Lee Hancock film or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a very it could be a very produced movie.
But yeah, Will Smith could be in the best actor conversation, and that would automatically make the movie somewhat of a contender. And it's also like a sports and a biopic thing. The Whale. Now this isn't guaranteed to come out next year, but Darren Aronofsky, man's a legend. He's a legend, folks. The Whale is about Brendan Fraser. He's playing a 600-pound man who is basically kind of stuck to his couch. It's based on a play that didn't do like a big run, but there are some clips of it on YouTube. And it's, you know, definitely like more of a heavy drama. Hong Chow is in it. Samantha Morton's in it. I think Hong Chow, you know, if the movie's great, like she could be sporting. Like Brendan Fraser, like could be in a lead actor contender potentially.
He could be. This is insane for him to be doing a role like this. I mean, Brendan Fraser could be excellent in this film, and Hong Chow could be really excellent in this film. But it's Darren Aronofsky. Clearly going off of his last film, which was Mother, which I love that film, but it was like the farthest thing from an Oscar contender. I don't think it would get nominated for Best Picture. I'm looking at Brendan Fraser and I'm looking at Hong Chow, and I am considering them. But for a film like this about a 600-pound man stuck to his couch, it would have to go really far to get to the Oscars as be one of Darren Aronofsky's best films. And his films have been kind of increasingly divisive, which I have no objections to. I'm really excited for this film. I need a trailer for this film really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the vision is for it yet.
The Survivor, which was, you know, last year it was low on our list and it was called Harry Haft. This one stars Ben Foster. It's a biopic, a true story about a man who was a victim of the Holocaust. He was in the concentration camp and he fought other prisoners there. And when he left the concentration camp, he took up like professional fighting so that he could become well known enough so that his wife would see him on TV and they could reunite. I mean, that is a hell of a fucking tale. And it's directed by Barry Levinson, who did Rain Man and Bugsy. You know, back in the day was directing these massive Oscar movies. Has not done much in the past 20 years. Cough, cough. Rock the Casbah. So this might be a little bit like outdated Oscar bait, but I mean, is Ben Foster going to be like giving an incredible performance? Like, we'll see. I mean,
it sounds kind of like Forrest Gump or like maybe Slumdog Millionaire, kind of sprawling stories that has like a bunch of different interesting chapters in it. But you know, those films were kind of the Oscar bait of the past. And even Slumdog Millionaire was like a more updated take because it featured India and it explored that culture. Ben Foster seems like he could be really fucking good in this movie and maybe get nominated. It sounds like a really good, you know, survival story, but what also comes to mind is Unbroken.
It could be Unbroken.
Could be Unbroken. Number 30 is The Eyes of Tammy Faye. We had this on our last year's list. It's got Andrew Garfield and Jessica Chastain playing Christian televangelists. They're gonna be wacky. They're gonna be fun to watch. You can see Andrew Garfield doing like, well, I'm just a Christian television, and I love Jesus. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord. You could see him doing that. You could see Jessica Chastain doing the same exact thing.
It's more of a biopic of Jessica Chastain. Also, Andrew Garfield's playing a young Jim Baker, Jim Baker.
These are based on real people, and they had a heyday where they were very famous, but they were also known for like a scam. So this is Interesting. It seems like there's a lot of potential for comedy here. The director is the director of The Big Sick.
With a September release date, you could see it at like the fall festivals.
Yeah, it could be really funny and enjoyable.
A Hero, which is Oscar Ferrati's next film. There's not many plot details or any details about this that make me think like it's like a next level production. Again, you know, his Bong Joon-ho moment. But any Oscar Ferrati movie, I am anticipating. Swan Song. This is a film where Mahershala Ali clones himself because he learns that he is dying of cancer. So it's a little bit of a sci-fi drama, but it also has Awkwafina, Glenn Close, and Naomi Harris in the movie. I mean, can you underestimate that cast? Can you underestimate it? Even though it's a sci-fi, the director, it's also going to be his debut feature, but he is an Academy Award winner for a short film that he did. He directed Stutterer. So I don't know what this is. I mean, it sounds like an emotional drama.
Yeah, it sounds kind of fascinating, like, you know, indie sci-fi thing. We'll see how it goes. Sci-fi is not really the Oscars thing, but we'll see.
9 Days, which I've been a big champion of since I saw it at Sundance in 2020. It was my second favorite film of last year, but it's actually coming out this year, really, in the summer. It is a movie that I think has the potential to get people talking. A lot of people are really passionate about it. Who knows what kind of band of people could get together and say, like, you know what, like, 9 Days made me cry. Excellent movie. I loved it. We should nominate, like, Winston Duke. I don't know. The screenplay, absolutely.
I think that could have happened in a year like last year, but maybe not in 2022. You can tell that it will have its fans that think it's like one of their favorite movies.
Especially this year after a movie like Promising Young Woman, which wasn't even on my list in the beginning of last year. Even though I'd seen it, like, I'm not discounting anything this year. I really don't want to miss anything.
That's why this list is so damn long.
Of Eternals. You gotta consider if Eternals can be the real shit.
Yep.
I mean, Marvel gave Chloe Zhao a lot of creative control here, and she just won Oscars. So I think that this isn't even off of the radar of the Oscar voters. It has a very like diverse, interesting ensemble cast. Like, who knows if it could even play at the SAGs. Like,
Chloe Zhao has said they let her do a lot of stuff she wanted to do, shoot on natural locations, probably has like some really nice cinematography in it that you wouldn't expect from a Marvel film, because usually their cinematography is like But what's the problem with Eternals, besides the fact that it's a superhero movie? It's a massive ensemble where you have to introduce all these kinds of characters, and you have to kind of follow like the formula and have them all come together at some point, and then they become the Eternals in the end. It's too beholden to like what it has to do as a comic book movie, possibly in order to be a really great film. It could be a great superhero comic book movie, but that's different than being one of the best movies of the year. But it's gonna have a fucking space portal in it.
Yeah.
Cole. The card counter. Paul Schrader wrote and directed this film. He's coming off of First Reformed, which was not very Oscar friendly, but which still got a screenplay nomination. Paul Schrader, like, he could have his time. He's kind of developed in a really interesting way. Like, I think First Reformed was a thesis for him for like what kinds of films he could be making. I think it literally is based off of a thesis he wrote about film. So I don't know how well this one conforms to that philosophy he has, which is sort of like this transcendental style of filmmaking, I think he calls it. But the card counter stars Oscar Isaac, Ty Sheridan, and Tiffany Haddish. It's a film about gambling, and it's more of like a crime or a heist kind of genre movie, which is, again, like, I do take genre very seriously when I look at the Oscars, and I don't think of that kind of genre as being like too indicative of an Oscar movie, but I am really curious to see what Paul Schrader's got up his sleeve.
Maybe Oscar Isaac's like amazing in it, and he's overdue for an Oscar nomination for sure. The Harder They Fall. This is a black western with an all-star fucking cast. We got Zazie Beetz, Idris Elba, Regina King, Lakeith Stanfield, Delroy Lindo, and Jonathan Majors. My goodness. The reason this is not higher is it kind of looks just like an entertaining genre film. The director had made a previous 50-minute film, and it looked very like indulging in like the genre tropes and just kind of trying to have like fun being a Western. It didn't necessarily seem like it had a wholly unique take substantively on like the Western genre. So I'm not sure if it's like the intellectuals Western, but it might be a really fun movie coming to Netflix. And I mean, the cast, you know, makes me think you got to leave it on here somewhere. 3,000 Years of Longing, which is an original film from George Miller. It's like a fantasy epic. Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba are in it, so it's a great cast. You're going to tell me that a movie where there's a genie giving people wishes is going to get nominated for Oscars?
He's really bending genres in a way that is unpredictable to me. I'm kind of looking forward to like what it is. I want a trailer.
After Yang, which is Kogonada's new film, going to A24. Kogonada, you may remember as the director of Columbus, which is a really great indie film that came out a few years ago. And now he's doing a sci-fi drama with Colin Firth and Jodie Turner-Smith. It's about a couple who adopts a Chinese girl and then hires a robot helper to like help her learn the language. I'm not sure what else ensues after then, but it seems very interesting. I would just put this on like a most anticipated films list. I'm not sure it's like going to be an Oscars movie or something that's trying to get Oscars, but
yeah,
really
it has a little bit of an Ex Machina vibe though, where like the sci-fi element is played down. The cinematography and just like the locations and the architecture in Columbus that they used was stunning, and so I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with a sci-fi film. Definitely watch Columbus.
We also have Tick Tick Boom, which is a musical going to Netflix later this year starring Andrew Garfield. It's an adaptation of an off-Broadway play, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is directing this. I don't think he has any role in the writing or the music, so that's sort of interesting. He's going to have quite a year this year, too. The Good Nurse. This might not come out this year, but it did finish filming, so it could. It stars Eddie Redmayne and Jessica Chastain. Eddie Redmayne is playing a serial killer doctor who, like, lets his patients die all the time, and Jessica Chastain is playing, I guess, a good nurse. You could start to see buzz for, like, Eddie Redmayne or something, or I don't know.
Yeah. It sounds like a thriller to me.
Yeah.
And when I think of it that way, I go, no. I say no.
Joe writes Cyrano.
Really low. That's really low.
It's low, but I'll tell you why. So Cyrano is a play that was written in like 1897. It's been adapted a bunch of times. This particular adaptation by Joe Wright is an adaptation of a 2018 adaptation, an off-Broadway production that Peter Dinklage was in playing Cyrano. Normally the character has a big nose and no one wants him, but in this one there's no nose, it's just Peter Dinklage, and presumably the characters don't want him because of his height. But weirdly enough, I read some reviews of this play, and it's like they still say it's his nose, and they also weren't good reviews. So that's why I'm saying Peter Dinklage going to get absolute praise, just as he did in these reviews.
And Oscar buzz.
Oscar buzz for Peter
Oscar
Dinklage.
nomination.
Absolutely. And with Joe Wright, you can expect great music, great production design, great cinematography. I do feel like the film is going to be somewhat of a flop, like critically, but you know, you got to have it in there because Joe Wright and because Peter Dinklage could get some actor buzz. Blue Bayou. It stars Justin Chan, who's also the film's director and writer. And his last two films went to Sundance. He's sort of an indie filmmaker. This one also has Alicia Vikander in it. It's about a Korean-American man who is raised in America, in Louisiana, and he kind of discovers that he could be deported from the country. But it's coming out in June 25th. Focus Features is releasing it, but
If I knew that this was a festival circuit film, I would say this is like easily could be a breakout because it's taking on a really relevant subject matter. But yeah, June, like what are they planning on doing with that? That's not an Oscar plan.
but it does sound interesting. It looks kind of good.
Stillwater, which I think we're getting to the point where we think that these films are kind of dead. Stillwater got a release date for the summer, and it stars Matt Damon. It's the director of Spotlight, Tom McCarthy. It also stars Abigail Breslin. I think this needed like a festival thing for me to even consider it. It's kind of confusing like what it's gonna be, and I don't think the plot sounds that Oscar-y.
Yeah, last year this was slated for a November release, so it was like, oh, but now it's slated for a July release, and it's like, forget it. The Hand of God. This is from Paolo Sorrentino, who did The Great Beauty and Youth. Very interesting filmmaker, and he's also teaming up in this film again with his favorite actor, Tony Servillo.
The Great Beauty is also a film I think everybody should watch. Probably one of the best of that decade. It's like beautifully directed, and if this film is one of his best, maybe it could be his time for like a director nomination since the Academy is just handing out nominations to foreign filmmakers like candy.
It's going to be at Cannes probably, and if it is, we'll see like pretty soon.
And it's got his lead actor in it, who is always amazing.
It's also said to be a very personal film for the director. Flea, which Neon picked up from Sundance. It's an animated documentary, also a foreign film, and you could get nominated in all those categories, which would be a first to do so. Be very interesting if it pulled that off. And it might. And if it pulls all three of those off, is it? I mean, I still think it's a big step to get to Best Picture from there. But
yeah,
there's something about it. It's also like about refugees and
yeah, it's a really good one. I don't think it will pull off a Best Picture, but
Decision to Leave. This is from Park Chan-wook, and some people are thinking, you know, like he's one of the great Korean directors. Will he have a Bong Joon-ho moment? This film is a sort of detective mystery, and so that alone kind of makes me say, I don't think this is the movie that's going to give him that moment. But, you know, it's going to be on everyone's radar. The Oscars don't really like mystery movies. We have Don't Worry, Darling from Olivia Wilde. This is a lot of people's most anticipated movie of the year. It's a sort of horror movie.
A lot of people have this higher, though.
I look at this plot and I think 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry about his glamorous company maybe hiding disturbing secrets. It just seems like the commentary might be a little on the nose, and also it's a horror movie, and so I can't really put it very high here. Even though Olivia Wilde's a promising director.
Yeah, I mean, if this weren't a horror movie, maybe, but...
We have The Lost Daughter, which has Olivia Colman in the lead role. It's got Dakota Johnson, Peter Skarsgård, Jessie Buckley, Ed Harris. It's also directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal in her directorial debut. Seems like it's maybe based on like a mom novel, and it's about someone who's on vacation, like confronting her past. So, we'll see what that brings, but, maybe Olivia Colman's great in it or something. Paris 13th District is a film from Jacques Audiard, who did Rust and Bone, A Prophet, D-Fan, and The Sisters Brothers. So he's got a great track record. We're also just kind of looking out, as you said, for like those directors that the Academy could pull out, the director's branch and nominate like a European fellow who's been working in the biz for a while. And Paris 13th District is also interesting because it's co-written by Celine Sciamma. It also has Naomi Merlant as one of the cast members from Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It's about like a love like quadrangle. It's just like these four who are like sometimes lovers, as it says, sometimes friends. Seems interesting. I'm excited for it. Triangle of Sadness. This is one that is probably going to premiere at Cannes and is directed by Ruben Olston, who is the director of Force Majeure and The Square. And this one is another like sort of class satire that takes place on like a boat or a yacht or something. And Woody Harrelson's actually in it. If it's a very acclaimed film and gets a lot of buzz out of Cannes, maybe it's a foreign film contender.
The Green Knight, because this is a highly anticipated film. It's A24. It's a sort of horror movie, but it's also like weirdly fantasy. It looks really fucking good and it has Dev Patel in the lead. It's like a mythical horror, maybe sort of like a new subgenre. But you know what I'm gonna say, like the genre alone, like what?
Yeah,
that wouldn't really get nominated for Oscars.
I mean, the best it could do, maybe it's like production design or costumes or cinematography or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
We also have Dear Evan Hansen.
Yet another musical.
Yeah. This one it's just like, it's not going to be as good as the musical. Like, everybody kind of knows that. And like, why is Ben Platt in it playing like a 20-year-old? Like, he's significantly older. And it's just like, yeah, of course they were going to turn this into a movie. And it's probably going to be like, okay, it's probably not going to be amazing. Untitled Nora Fingshite Project. Sandra Bullock plays a woman who, after getting out of jail for a crime that she committed, is very upset because no one will like forgive her or treat her normally ever again. Viola Davis is in it, maybe in a supporting role. I mean, maybe Sandra Bullock will be like a best actress thing. I don't know. And that is our master list of next year's Oscar contenders. Hopefully, because there were so goddamn many, we didn't miss any, but we probably did.
Oh, we absolutely missed, like, I'm going to guess we missed 2 or 3. Regardless, hopefully there are some films in here that you now know about that you're looking forward to seeing.
Looking forward to another full cycle of Oscars with you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
What film do you think is indisputably getting nominated?